Welcome to another installment of our Acts Bible study for February 27th, 2026. Today we're talking about Acts chapter 18, and our verses are 18:24 through 28. Meanwhile, a certain Jew named Apollos arrived in Ephesus. He was a native of Alexandria and was well educated and effective in his use of the scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord and spoke as one stirred up by the Spirit. He taught accurately the things about Jesus, even though he was aware only of the baptism John proclaimed and practiced. He began speaking with confidence in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they received him into their circle of friends and explained to him God's way more accurately. When he wanted to travel to Achaia, the brothers and sisters encouraged him and wrote to the disciples so they would open their homes to him. Once he arrived, he was of great help to those who had come to believe through grace. He would vigorously defeat Jewish arguments in public debate, using the scriptures to prove that Jesus was the Christ. So we're on the road again with Paul in Acts 18, because that's what Paul does. He's a missionary and he travels. And a lot of Acts 18 is talking about Paul's time in Corinth and how he went about teaching and preaching, and Priscilla and Aquila who helped him. It does remind us, not in verses that you heard, but in other parts of 18, it does remind us that these early people that we call Christians were definitely still considered Jews or considered themselves Jews. And so this again highlights the difference between the Jews that accepted that Christ was the Messiah and the Jews that didn't. And we see some interesting interaction between those groups, and also as the Jews in the synagogue want to bring Paul up on charges, and the Roman official is like, dudes, this is not about Roman law. This is some sort of inner Jewish quibble that you have going, and I'm not going to do anything about it. And so Paul kind of escapes some problems there when the Roman official refuses to do anything about the other Jewish people's complaints. But then at the end of chapter 18, we learn about this man named Apollos. And I think that he's really interesting. He'll be referred to later because in one of Paul's letters to the early church, he talks about how, I know some of you heard the message first from me, some of you heard it first from Apollos, and whether or not you follow me or Apollos, like, we all follow God. God is the one who is really the one that we're here for. And so our teachers are important, but God is God and Apollos is not, and I am not. But here's where we get introduced to Apollos, and it's interesting that at some point he has converted. He has become a follower of the way, and he, it says that he's well educated and effective in his use of the scriptures, which is a really interesting descriptor. We get this sense, if he's from Alexandria, if you know anything about the ancient world, Alexandria was where I think the largest library was, right? Or the famous Library of Alexandria. So there's a sense that Apollos must have been well educated if he came from Alexandria. But what Priscilla and Aquila find out is that he doesn't actually know everything he needs to know, right? So he has some knowledge, he's well educated, he's an effective speaker, and clearly an effective debater as well, but he doesn't have all the details, right? And so Priscilla and Aquila, who had been helping Paul in Corinth and are now in Ephesus, Priscilla and Aquila take him under their wing and they give him the information that he needs. They, want him to be a representative of the faith, but they want him to do it fully informed. So it's an interesting commentary on this understanding that, even those who are able to speak and lead among us, and those who have the most energy and may be filled with the Spirit, we still need instruction and we still need better understanding. So, if you're a college student, then you're receiving instruction and being taught and better understanding all of the time. And also as people of faith, we believe that faith and becoming faithful is a lifelong learning experience, as well as a lifelong, it's a work in progress. And so we can appreciate that Apollos had the energy, Apollos had the Spirit, Apollos really wanted to share what he knew and to convince others that Jesus was the Christ, and he needed a little bit of help. And so we all do. Those of us who lead in the church still need help understanding. Those of us who are brand new to the church also need help understanding and being able to speak out about our faith. So think about Apollos and how he was well educated but had more to learn. And next week we will hear more about Paul's journey in Ephesus. Have a great week. Bye.